exposing the truth, how my mother-in-law's plan backfired. The tension in the room was palpable as I sat across from my mother-in-law, her stern gaze piercing through me like a cold dagger. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the walls closing in. I never imagined that my marriage, once filled with love and promise, would come to this, an ultimatum from the woman who had never truly accepted me as her son's wife. "Divorce him," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth. "You don't belong in this family." Her words echoed in my ears, a demand I had anticipated but never fully prepared for. My mother-in-law had never been subtle in her disapproval of me. From the moment I married her son, Daniel, she had made it clear that I was not the wife she had envisioned for him. I wasn't from the right background. I didn't have the right connections. And in her eyes, I wasn't good enough. But I had married Daniel for love, not for his family's approval. We had built a life together, filled with dreams and aspirations. Or at least, that's what I had thought. The truth was that our marriage had been crumbling for months. Daniel had grown distant, cold, and uncommunicative. The man who once showered me with affection and made me feel like the most important person in his life had become a stranger. I couldn't understand what had gone wrong. It was during one of our many arguments that I realized something was seriously amiss. Daniel's phone, usually guarded like a fortress, had been left unattended on the kitchen counter. I knew it was wrong to snoop, but my instincts told me I needed to know what was happening in my marriage. My heart sank as I scrolled through his messages and discovered the truth. Daniel was having an affair. The shock was overwhelming, but more than that, I felt a deep sense of betrayal. How could the man I loved do this to me? I had given him everything, and in return, he had deceived me in the worst possible way. For weeks I kept the affair a secret, hoping that Daniel would confess, that he would show some sign of remorse. But he never did. Instead, he continued to pull away, leaving me to deal with the pain on my own. And now, here I was, sitting across from my mother-in-law, who was demanding that I divorce her son. I wanted to scream, to tell her that her precious boy was the one who had destroyed our marriage, not me. But I knew that wouldn't accomplish anything. She was too blinded by her love for him to see the truth. So I remained silent, letting her rant and rave about how I was ruining Daniel's life, how I was the problem in their perfect family. But as she continued to belittle me, something inside me snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't let her continue to blame me for something that wasn't my fault. "I know about the affair," I blurted out, my voice trembling with anger. "Daniel's been cheating on me." The room fell silent, my mother-in-law's eyes widening in shock. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. For the first time, she was speechless. I took a deep breath and continued, my voice steadier now. "I've known for weeks. I've seen the messages, the photos. I've been trying to figure out how to confront him, how to deal with the fact that the man I loved betrayed me." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I needed to stay strong, to finally stand up for myself. "You want me to divorce him? Fine, but you need to know that this isn't my fault. Your son is the one who destroyed our marriage, not me." My mother-in-law stared at me, her face pale and her eyes filled with disbelief. She had never imagined that her perfect son could be capable of such deceit. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she tried to process what I had just revealed. I didn't know," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course you didn't," I said bitterly. "You were too busy blaming me for everything to see what was really going on." For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. The ironclad certainty she had always displayed was beginning to crack, and I realized that I had finally gotten through to her. "I'll talk to him," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "I'll make sure he makes this right." I shook my head, a sad smile playing on my lips. "It's too late for that. Our marriage is over, but you should know that this wasn't my doing. I've been faithful. I've tried to make it work, But Daniel made his choice. With that, I stood up and walked out of the room, leaving my mother-in-law to grapple with the truth. As I stepped outside, the weight that had been pressing down on my shoulders for so long began to lift. I knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in months, I felt a sense of clarity. Daniel and I would go our separate ways, but I wouldn't be leaving as the villain in this story. I had fought for my marriage, but I wouldn't let myself be dragged down by someone else's mistakes. As I walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation. The truth had finally been revealed, and everything had changed. I was ready to start a new chapter in my life, one where I would no longer be defined by my marriage or the expectations of others. I was ready to reclaim my happiness on my own terms. When her controlling mother-in-law demands a divorce, claiming she's unworthy of her son, the protagonist finds herself at a crossroads. But just as she's about to lose everything, a shocking revelation about her husband's affair turns the tables, exposing the real truth and changing the course of their lives forever. In a battle of betrayal, manipulation, and unexpected empowerment, she must decide whether to fight for her dignity or walk away from a marriage built on lies.